Buenos días. Hoy es la segunda sesión de nuestro encuentro, de esta especie de seminario, en el que, obligados por las circunstancias, lo estamos haciendo de una manera global y local, pero justamente potenciando la posibilidad de encontrarnos en espacios virtuales. Esa posibilidad y esa perspectiva abre múltiples interrogantes, en particular ese que nos hemos planteado de cómo trabajar juntos. Y nosotros encontramos que el poder está en las redes. Por eso hemos convocado a redes y organizaciones de artes escénicas y música que desde sus diferentes espacios en todo el mundo han logrado, sin ninguna duda, sumar esfuerzos para tratar de encontrar salidas y luces para esta crisis que vive la humanidad. Solo trabajando juntos y solo encontrando estos espacios de encuentro es que se vislumbra alguna luz al final del túnel, como dice la vieja figura retórica que tanto usamos. Realmente tenemos convocadas gentes de los 5 continentes, desde redes de Oceanía, asiáticas, africanas, europeas, norteamericanas y desde luego un espacio para nuestra América. Pero además, con el concepto de espacio común iberoamericano que siempre hemos desarrollado, también tenemos unas mesas de trabajo con colegas de este ámbito geográfico que han tratado de proponer y encontrar soluciones para sobrellevar la crisis, para no solo pensar en términos de ecosistema cultural y la sobrevivencia de ese ecosistema, sino también desde la posibilidad de trabajar juntos en esa dimensión geográfica y en esa perspectiva que va más allá de lo local e incluso de lo global para pensar en región. Esas son las dos perspectivas de trabajo que tendremos hoy y damos la bienvenida a todos. Hoy nos dividiremos en 2 áreas. Ayer tuvimos ese maravilloso encuentro con Alexandra que nos obligó a reflexionar sobre cómo se piensa en red, sobre el tema de la educación, sobre cómo las nuevas tecnologías han cambiado nuestros hábitos y nuestras vidas. Y hoy, ya familiarizados como muchos de nosotros estamos, con los nuevos medios, con los espacios virtuales, con este ámbito de convocatoria, pues ya estamos entonces reflexionando específicamente sobre nuestro quehacer, sobre cómo afecta nuestra vida cotidiana y sobre todo sobre perspectivas de futuro. ¿Hay una perspectiva para los próximos años? ¿De qué manera la sostenibilidad del sector y las organizaciones culturales se afecta? Son un poco las preguntas que estamos formulando y trataremos de encontrar algunas respuestas que los colegas de todo el mundo están vislumbrando o han encontrado o están pensando en proponer. Entonces hoy, insisto, la metodología será dividirnos en 2 mesas, una para las artes escénicas y una para la música, y allí encontrarán estos testimonios, estas reflexiones de colegas de todo el mundo. Bienvenidos a esta nueva sesión y esperamos que la aprovechen, que sea de buen provecho y que puedan participar muy activamente en ella. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, muy buenos días para todos. Gracias por estar con nosotros hoy nuevamente, por ingresar a este seminario internacional sobre cómo trabajar en red, cómo trabajar juntos el poder de las redes. Y tengo el gusto hoy de moderar este primer panel donde tenemos unos invitados muy especiales para hablar sobre el panorama en perspectiva desde las redes globales. Como lo decía Octavio, este año ha sido un año muy interesante y particular para todos de diferentes maneras y pues por supuesto nosotros continuamos con este ejercicio de poder generar espacios para conectarnos, para conocernos, para seguir tratando de trabajar en red por este sector, por la música, además a nivel mundial. Y pues en este primer panel contamos con 6 invitados muy importantes, 6 líderes que trabajan desde sus continentes como Asia, como África, Europa y por supuesto Norteamérica. Trabajan de una manera muy fuerte por el ecosistema musical de todo el planeta. Y ellos nos van a dar un panorama actual sobre la situación en cada una de estas regiones, cómo se están desarrollando los nuevos modelos en el contexto digital. También nos van a compartir un poco sobre las redes actuales, las redes en las que trabajan, qué acciones están liderando desde estas redes para dar además un beneficio un poco a las organizaciones artísticas que se han visto en un desafío muy importante y en varias dificultades. Y cómo se trabaja también en unión con el sector, tanto a nivel local como a nivel internacional. Entre todos vamos a dar unas miradas generales. La idea es que pues cada uno nos cuente un poco sobre, desde sus organizaciones, desde sus entidades, sea festivales o sus roles dentro de redes, cómo reaccionaron estas organizaciones en primera instancia a la pandemia, qué acciones están liderando para acompañar a las organizaciones artísticas y cuáles son las perspectivas que se están planteando para la recuperación del sector y si además hay un futuro próximo para el sector de las artes. De alguna manera el arte nace con el hombre y no podrá desaparecer. Sin embargo, esta dificultad que se nos presenta en la actualidad pues nos deja mucho que pensar, mucho que construir y por supuesto una necesidad enorme de trabajar en conjunto. Así que quiero darle primero la bienvenida a nuestro amigo Patrick de Groot. Él se encuentra en Bélgica en este momento, es director artístico de Sniff Mix y además es director de la red de festivales de música Forum of Worldwide Music Festival. Esta es una red de festivales que están centrados en la música global y cultural que representa artistas locales e internacionales. Y pues por supuesto queremos invitar a Patrick para que nos cuente un poco cómo funciona esta red, cuántos festivales hacen parte de la red, qué se necesita para estar en esta red y sobre todo en el panorama actual, lo que hablábamos ahorita, qué acciones vienen liderando como red para los festivales y para el sector artístico. Así que Patrick, bienvenido y te damos la palabra.
Thank you, Carolina, and welcome to everybody. I'm happy to be here, or here, and see you there. And this is a little bit how it's going these days. We're all used of traveling the world to bring music together and show them to our audiences. And this year has been different. The Forum of Worldwide Music Festival is a network of festivals interested in new music and interesting music, in music from all parts of the world. And within the network, we share our music, we share how we put up festivals, we try to exchange, to work together. We have a lot of European members, but also members in Brazil, in Asia, in Africa, and so on. So it's since a few years going more global. Since the beginning of this year, we have had all our meetings like this, online, by Zoom or other ways, which is different. We cannot have drinks together afterwards, but it's easier to connect. This is also a possibility. And it's easier to connect to those who don't always have the possibility to travel to meet. Besides that, even if the situation is extremely different in all the countries, all the member festivals were affected. Some very deeply. Quite some festivals have been cancelled totally because of the capacity, because of very strict measurements in their country, because of lockdown. Some festivals managed to make the switch to online, or in some cases a mix of live and online, and others were looking for new ways of presenting things. Some of our festivals have turned into drive-in festivals or into balcony festivals. or all other creative ways of presenting artists. What did change in almost all festivals, and especially in those who managed to do live, is that the artists were local, which for the network that we're working in is quite a change. Of course, in each country you find a variety of people with roots or connection to different cultures, so you can still have a very varied program, but it was a local program. Another thing that we noticed while meeting and exchanging is that the way that the governments, the authorities, the ministries of culture and others are dealing with culture in the crisis is extremely different. Some countries still now have very little or no support for culture, no support for the creative industry. While other countries, Belgium, Holland, Germany, but also Australia, Canada, have huge support, which still makes things possible and make it possible that artists can still survive, that organizers can survive, and that there is some transition possible to a possible future. So it's very hard to generalize or to give an idea of how this would affect the network. We really have to look to each specific festival in each country and what is possible and what support they can get. At least what touched me a lot during all these meetings is that all our colleagues, not only within the network, but also other friends, are really looking into doing things and making things possible, whatever the restrictions may be. So I think that's at least a good start for what we represent. And if more people, more festivals, more organizers could get the support that some did, it would make things easier. And everybody's looking. If you allow, I show some images of the things we did this summer, because we have been struggling also in Belgium. I hope this works. Normally Sphinx is a 100,000 capacity festival, which was out of the question. So we had to find a lot of other solutions together with another festival that I'm running. Especially in a time where, at least in Belgium, the criteria and measurements from the government were changing every week, every 2 weeks. So sometimes we could have show with masks, other times without masks, with distancings of 2 meters, of 1.5 meters, and so on. We tried to find solutions so people could still enjoy, like in this picture, setting up tables where people could have a drink while watching the concert. The wonderful thing in the Belgian measurements was that when you go to culture, you have to put up a mask, but if you're having a drink, you can put it down. So if you're drinking while looking at the concert, you don't need a mask. We did a lot of circular projects where the artists were in the middle and the people were all around, so people could feel closer, and it was also very nice to look at the audience and not only to the artist. This is a setup we did in open air where people were placed on individual chairs, distanced, and got a headphone to watch the show. Worked very well. We did the show over 30 times for 150 people. That was the limit. But this way we reached 4,500 people for this show. Same for frontal concerts, always with drinks and masks. And this is how we functioned this year, with distance, with masks, but still putting up shows for the audiences. And in this way, also inviting other disciplines who had difficulties in performance, like fashion shows and dance shows and so on. We still managed to do almost 400 shows in a few months' time with some stops and reach almost 100,000 people. I think that's the one thing we recall is that artists were extremely happy to meet the audience, and the audience was extremely happy to meet the artists. So as long as we can make that happen, it's all worth a lot of problems and worries and disinfection and masks. Thank you.
Gracias, Patrick. Thank you very much. Es muy grato poder ver que de alguna manera se logre generar espacios para el encuentro de las artes y que seguramente ha sido un gran desafío para todas las plataformas que nos acompañan hoy. Nosotros desafortunadamente aún acá no lo hemos podido ver ni siquiera de la manera en que nos muestras, así que pues es una gran ventaja. Creo que incluso una de nuestras invitadas desde su festival, Oslo World, también lograron hacer algo. Más adelante vamos a conocer esa experiencia. Y bueno, ahora queremos darle paso a Glenn Dick de Sounds of Australia. Él nos viene acompañando desde la oficina de exportación musical de esta entidad, que es responsable del desarrollo y la dirección y coordinación de Sounds of Australia en diferentes plataformas de mercado como Folk Alliance, South by Southwest, el Summer Stage, también han estado en Circulart, en Primavera Pro y bueno, diferentes espacios para la comercialización de la música de Australia. Glenn también fue parte de EMI Music Australia y queremos invitarlo para que nos cuente también un poco sobre la situación allí, cuál es el panorama para la circulación de la música, qué oportunidades han detectado y bueno, cuáles han sido las acciones que ha establecido Sounds of Australia. Así que Glenn, bienvenido.
Thank you for having me, and hopefully my perspective on all this is helpful to all of you that are watching. I'll try and speak as slowly as I can to make it easier for everybody to understand, and I apologize if I speak too Australian or too fast. Firstly, I'd just like to say that I'm on Gadigal country here, which is colonially known as Sydney in Australia. Gadigal country of the Eora Nation. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and pay my respects to any Indigenous people who might be watching this today. So I've been given a bit of time to freestyle on what's happening here in Australia. My name is Glennie G, and I work for Sounds Australia as the export music producer. Sounds Australia is the music export body. Before COVID, we spent our time traveling around to different international events all over the world, putting on showcases and networking events at international music conferences, including some trips to South America. My boss, Millie, has been to Circulart. I was hoping to get there this year, so I'm pretty bummed that I didn't get to, with all of this. There's a whole bunch of bad things that have obviously happened around coronavirus, but one of them is me not being able to get to Circulart in its purest form too. So we would do networking events and showcase events all over the world at different music conferences, and across all different genres too, from classical and jazz right through to your dance music and contemporary rock and roll and indie rock. So obviously that's all changed now. Here in Australia, we're obviously very isolated from the rest of the world, a very large country in landmass, but only 26 million people here. So we have a fair bit of space around us. And as of today, we only have 13 cases of coronavirus in the whole country. So we are in a very, very unique and probably enviable position compared to the rest of the world. It does mean, though, that we are in the fact that we have had our borders closed, not only internationally, but our borders have been closed nationally. The state borders were closed for a period of time and have only really started to open up properly this week. So going into Christmas will be the first time since March that the Australian borders internally will be open. That is obviously going to help things. Well, there's multiple things. Obviously, our low rate of coronavirus has meant that things like venues are starting to open up at a reduced capacity. Most of the venues that are now open have a seating arrangement, so you need to be sat at tables. Around about 50% capacity at the moment, depending on the state. Western Australia is a bit more open. They've had no cases for a very long time, so they're actually able to go back to pretty much a normal pre-COVID existence. But the fact that gigs are starting to open, Melbourne, which is probably more renowned for being the city of music to the rest of the world, that has had the most severe lockdowns, and that has now been 28 days since the last COVID case. So now the borders are open there as well, and the restaurants and the economy is starting to open up, but that's going to be a little bit slower. So as for Australia, we're very lucky at the moment that things do seem to be opening up. So it's a chance for the rest of the world to look at Australia and New Zealand as well for how best to go back into opening up safely if you can get the numbers down. So hopefully that is that's something that the rest of the world will look to Australia for, and we can lead in that respect. In terms of being able to export music, it's been very difficult, obviously, to do that for us, for anybody really. But being so far away from everybody does mean that we're going to be in a digital capacity for quite some time. We're likely not going to be able to tour internationally or leave the country until late 2021, maybe October. And realistically, it'll be 2022 before we can really leave the country properly. For us to do that, it's going to be extremely expensive. There's possibly going to be hotel quarantine that happens. So anybody who's coming back into Australia right now, Australians that are coming back to Australia, you've got to spend 2 weeks in a hotel at your own expense, which is around about $3,000 per person. So you've got to come back in, spend 2 weeks in quarantine, get tested 3 times during that time before you'll be let out to go back to your normal existence. So there's a lot of expense that comes with that. So that expense will be will obviously go back onto the artists, which will make touring internationally very difficult, and only a certain level of artists will probably be able to do that. We'll be doing a lot of local touring, but it does not mean that we won't be open to international touring. While we might not be able to tour overseas, there might be the possibility that international artists could come into Australia, do some quarantining, spend a fair bit of time here, in the safety of a coronaless society, which might be very appealing to a lot of artists to come over here and do that, to be honest. So that's their possibilities. We all know that everything is changing by the minute. So for me to be saying things are definitely going to be happening is just me lying to you. So this is all just, you know, what we think could happen. It's all hypotheticals. Everything we talk about within the music industry, and especially within the export music industry, is pretty hypothetical right now. But we do know that it's going to take us a lot longer than a lot of other countries before we're going to be able to do in-person activities. I guess this whole experience has been, I mean, we experience a lot of bushfires here in Australia, as you may or may not know. And this whole experience feels like for the music industry is a little bit, you know, as an analogy, a little bit like that. There's a lot of devastation that has happened. From that devastation, there are parts of the industry that is, or artists that are not able to you know, continue to work or to survive in a work capacity through this event. But as we know, after bushfires, there's this incredible regrowth that happens, and you can feel that although the music industry has been decimated all over the world, there are these amazing stories that are coming up, and we're connecting now through Zoom, and we've never been further apart, but in some ways, it's been probably said a million times, we are coming closer together through these calls. We're having regular catch-ups with the other export offices from around the world on a monthly basis. There are people from export offices around the world that I've never met before, and now we're having regular conversations. We're sharing ideas, we're sharing experience. We're able to talk each other through different scenarios about how these different music conferences might work in the future. So we've got this support network that has never necessarily happened before. We've also been part of an amazing initiative called Global Music Match. If you go to globalmusicmatch.com, you can see a whole bunch of collaborations and interviews and stuff that have happened as part of that. It was 14 export offices from around the world, 96 artists from around the world coming together to create. We created, out of the 96 artists, we created 16 teams, all made up of the different artists from around the world. And those artists then introduced each other to their fan base and into their country. So they were doing interviews with each other, they were doing collaborations with each other, and it was all done through social media. We originally thought that it was just going to be a way for the artists to connect and grow their social media numbers and to basically export to other countries when we weren't able to travel. What we found, though, was it was the periphery things that came out of it. The support that artists talking to each other and the support that gave them helped with their mental health. It helped with inspiring their creativity again. It's been very hard for a lot of artists to feel creative during this period of time. I'm sure that people who don't work in music and who aren't artists themselves are probably going, well, how good, you just write a song, you just every day just write music and record music. It's not that simple when you're trying to figure out how you're going to get money to pay for the food to be able to survive. So the Global Music Match experience has helped a lot of artists to just have a support network and be able to connect and create different some music and some relationships. So that's been really special for us to be a part of with the other export offices that have been around before. I guess what else is there? For Sounds Australia, being an export office that has predominantly worked internationally the whole time, being at home and being back in Australia, we've had to shift the way that we're working and that we're interacting. When we first started to go into lockdown, our role a lot of the time was just as a support and to be able to listen to all of the different people and all of the artists, the managers, the crew, being able to hear about their experiences and be a bit of a shoulder to lean on or to cry on or whatever they needed. We didn't want to just start going in and pretending that we could do exactly the same thing as what we were doing, but do it virtually. We've been very methodical and strategic about when we're doing things and what we're investing in. We've invested in, I'm wearing the t-shirt. There's the t-shirt, not there. We've invested in some smaller projects like Isolate Festival, which started up the first week of COVID times. So I think they're probably up to about week number 39. So they've had 39 festivals since COVID started, which is pretty wild. There's United We Stream, which is a global initiative within the dance community that we've been a part of, and obviously Global Music Match as well. So there's been a lot of things that we've spent our time investing in, but we haven't tried to create too many different things. The hardest part for anybody working in music export right now, and probably the arts in general, I know that you've got people working in theatre and dance and stuff like that as part of the Circulart, but just keeping up with every single day is a conference day now, and it's wild. It is wild. It's hard to keep up with. It's hard to get your head around. Everything is the same but different. So that has been a real challenge for us to kind of keep up with and to be able to talk and communicate that these things are happening with the Australian music industry as well. It obviously offers a great opportunity for people to participate in conferences that they may not have been able to afford to get to in the past. So 2020 has definitely been almost like a setup year. Everything has stopped, and then we're all kind of rebuilding and rethinking our ways of working, and for different artists from all around the world and different industry from all around the world to kind of experience these different events has probably been pretty good for a lot of the events potentially, because they're starting to tap into an audience or into people who might attend in the future. I think it's been especially good for artists working for the Indigenous communities and Indigenous artists and First Nations artists, who are, especially like within Australia, a lot of those artists are very remote, so it's hard for them to get to the capital cities of Australia, let alone get to an international market. So for them to be able to communicate with other First Nations artists around the world and to participate in some of these conferences, I think has been special and been very good for them. And I would hope that accelerates the ability for First Nations artists to be part of the conversation and just being able to be part of everything we do and all over the world easier, make that easier as we come out of all of this. What else? I feel like I don't know how much time I just kept on talking. All right, that's probably enough for me. I've covered a bit. You can find me at gdickie@soundsaustralia.com, or if you just go to the Sounds Australia website, you can catch up with us. Thanks for having me as part of Circulart, and again, I'm so bummed that I can't be there in person, and I look forward to seeing all of you soon, and please be safe, be well, and stay powerful. We'll see you all soon.
Gracias Glenn. Sin duda esperamos también poder tenerte acá en Colombia en alguna de estas ediciones. Y ahora como parte de este seminario, pues nos dejas una enseñanza muy importante, pues por supuesto es Australia y Nueva Zelanda son modelos a ver para imitar algunas de las acciones que han realizado. Ahí hay que destacar el esfuerzo que hicieron con esta creación de esta plataforma de Global Music Match. En el chat van a poder encontrar la web que compartimos para que la puedan conocer. Más de 11 oficinas de exportación del planeta se unen para hacer esta iniciativa que está conectando a los artistas y que un poco sobrepasó las expectativas de los organizadores. Festivales, Isolated Festival y bueno, las demás acciones que están liderando desde Australia, sin duda muy interesantes y muy importantes para esta reactivación. Y para continuar, queremos darle la bienvenida también a otro gran amigo de la casa que es Brahim el Mazned. Él viene desde África, está en Rabat, Marruecos. Lleva más de 20 años en la actividad del mundo cultural marroquí, es director de un mercado cultural muy importante también que se llama Visa for Music, que se realiza en Rabat, y es el director artístico de un gran festival llamado Timitar de Músicas del Mundo, y además es miembro del Comité Internacional de la red Afirma. Bienvenido Brahim, es para nosotros una alegría contar contigo en este seminario y que estés acá. Y como los demás, quisiéramos que además de contarnos cómo se ha vivido pues esta situación pandémica en el sector cultural en Marruecos, pues también quisiéramos que nos cuentes un poco sobre Afrima, cuál es la misión de esta red y en este momento qué tipo de acciones están liderando. Así que Brahim, te cedo la palabra y qué bueno verte.
Gracias, Carolina. Thank you, Carolina, and hello, everyone. I'm happy to participate to this Circulart conference and to see many of my colleagues. Well, in Morocco, since March 16, the cultural sector is stopped as many countries around the world. So we canceled the Timitar Festival last July. But regarding Visa for Music, we maintained this edition, despite the challenges that this represented in terms of partnership in particular, because the vast majority of our usual partners didn't support us. So there's two problems: the pandemic, but also the economic crisis now in Morocco, and I think also everywhere. So we wanted to honor our commitment to promote in our region the music sector and the artists at all costs. We want also to try to give hope to artists, to our sector, by showing that it's possible to continue to bring culture to life while respecting the health measure in force by developing the use of course, digital in particular. Even digital was already present in our sector, in the cultural sector, but many artists developed it during the lockdown and understood that it could create value So digital will likely occupy much more important place in the field of culture in the future. We are here because of digital give us this opportunity to continue the discussion and exchange ideas. So in particular in the music field, digital can of course never completely replace live and direct relationship between audience and uh, and artist. That's why we are looking forward to returning to proper production and broadcasting, and we are crossing fingers to for the visa for music live next year. And of course, I cross fingers for all of our events. So digital is okay, but it's not for us of course the priority. But many events in Morocco are cancelled completely, and everybody is crossing finger and waiting for the vaccine. Normally in Morocco we should start in a few weeks the campaign of vaccination. So I hope we can be back to normal situation by next summer. Apart of visa for music, we have allowed 17 Moroccan bands or artists, and also artists resident in Morocco to record 3 titles in the high studio quality, broadcasting live and Facebook during the festival, and watched by thousands, more than 1 million person follow us on this edition. It was a way from them to develop more visibility and continue their activity despite the pandemic. We have also acquired a mobile stage. We hope we can travel with around Morocco with artists, in particularly in the places in region where the culture is difficult to access, so that artists can perform and do more live performance soon. Finally, we also record many traditional musicians, and we prepared an anthology. So it's already ready, and I hope I can present it in our events soon when we at the end of this pandemic. Thank you again.
Gracias, Brahim.
Gracias. Thank you.
Ustedes sin duda hacen también un trabajo muy importante por mantener la esperanza, como lo decías al inicio, por darle una opción a los artistas, al sector de la música, para mostrarles que es posible seguir haciendo su arte a pesar de todas las dificultades a las que se vieron enfrentados este año, que no fue, pues que fue un tema a nivel mundial y que ha sido muy difícil de manejar para todos, pero que a pesar de eso, pues han pasado ya varios meses y nos encontramos activos y nos encontramos aquí tratando de continuar este trabajo en red y de ver cuál es la importancia que tiene el trabajo en las redes. Y para continuar, pues quiero presentarles a Jung Lee. Él viene de Corea del Sur, está en el futuro en este momento. Hace parte de una red que se llama GloMMnet, Red Internacional de Mercados. Es fundador y director de Seoul Music Week, fundador y director de Ulsan Jazz Festival y presidente de GloMMnet, que pues es una red de mercados para promover también artistas. Lee ha tenido la oportunidad también de visitarnos en Colombia, de poder activar también ese intercambio con Asia y queremos darle la bienvenida para que nos cuente también un poco cómo ha sido el panorama aquí en Corea, donde pues un poco inició toda esta pandemia y se vio con más anticipación afectado que nosotros, y qué está pasando con el sector cultural y las acciones que están generando para el sector. Así que, Lee, bienvenido y te damos la palabra.
Okay, I would like to say first of all, I would like to say the hola to our friends in Circulart and also the Colombian artists and my friends in Colombian friends and also people who involved and participated in Circulart. First of all, there's a what is the react after the COVID-19 in Korea? I will introduce the situation of the Korea. Very funny thing is I used to go to my travel year 10 or 12 times a year. But this year I went to Okinawa, Japan, at the middle of February before the pandemic. That's why what I'm saying, my English is very bad nowadays because I didn't using the English. I stay just in home and my hometown. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, everybody knows this pandemic situation is not good to every people and every countries. I would like to introduce the situation about in Korea very shortly. Before the October is our Korean people and government is really did a good job to protect the COVID-19. Under the 100 people, our Korean population is 50 million population, but one day 100 under the 100. But after from the last week, last 5 days, we have 500 people have COVID-19, but very successful protect, or yeah, in the every almost people cooperation with our government. Yeah, you can check by Google or the about this news. Anyway, as I know, some of the local city they have the concert at the public art center or the venue from the August, because now is Korea is the second level. We have a 3 level, 1, 2, 3. The second is not too dangerous. For example, the public art center, when they have a concert or performance, they can take the 50% seat. They can selling the ticket at the 50%. My concert will be next year, the Ulsan Metropolitan Cultural Arts Center. 3 days concert. The 2 band will play a day. Totally 6 band will play the 3 days. The art center will be selling the ticket. Their goal is 50% the ticket. And so, and then other things is okay. After the COVID-19 in not only Korea, I think, but also another countries that are very similar, I think. Almost the artist, including the musician, they made their the video, and then they used to release by YouTube. Of course, many band, many artists, they have their website and Facebook and Instagram. But nowadays, YouTube is a main platform or main channel for their art and their music. Is I want to introduce for example, the most famous music festival in Korea. One of the most famous music festival in Korea is Charasom International Jazz Festival. Of course, they processed by online, not live, but their YouTube is I know is 200,000 or 300,000 people watching the concert. Of course, my Seoul Music Week, we didn't open yet by YouTube, but will be open and next week. I can guess we have this year Seoul Music Week. We have a 22 showcase. I can guess each showcase the 2,000 people or 2,000 viewer they can watching each concert. Like this, almost the musician and artist they using the YouTube channel. This is the hot trend, and also they will become a mainstream the platform. In Korea, we don't have any official network or combine with each artist or each the group, but many small group and in Seoul and another the local city, they got some event for their union, and then and also the public institute in each city, they supported the money for the performance, and also they supported the money is like a pension. Yeah, because you know almost the artists they really difficult and really hard earn the money of this year. Our public institute or like a Minister of Culture, they have three or four main the branch institute. They used to the support to the artist, for example, this money for the recording, live the video recording for YouTube, and they supported the money for the rent, the concert hall of the venue, and also they supported like basic money is like the money for the buying of food and pay the rent house like this. Yes, and I think but the not too biggest, not too big organization or the union, big union is like a labor union. Our Korean artists they didn't organize the big union for this the pandemic. Yeah. The last is the recovered and overview, right? In the future, right? And
Yes.
Korea and another Asian country. Yes. Actually, almost similar with the Korea and Japan. For example, the Taiwan. Last month, I did this like a session. I did an online session with a bureau expert French. I met two people. One person from the Japan, one person from the China. They're almost similar, and especially the Japan is more harder and more difficult because you know this year the Tokyo Olympic is the postponed to next year, and also 2,000 people more, 2,000 in Japan, 2,000 people more a day. They got the COVID-19 is it's a very hard situation, and also and last month their prime minister is changed. They have a very difficult. The political situation is also is a people don't concern the art and the music is also. But I think if the next year the Tokyo Olympic and will be held, I hope, yeah, for our uh, people who live in our Earth and our planet, they have to they have the organization of the many concert and performance and festival for next year. Probably not only Tokyo Olympic, the before and after the Paralympic is also almost the 2 months. They have to organize the various event, cultural and art event in Tokyo, and also another big city, Osaka, Nagoya, and Kobe. It's like this. We Korea, we have the good chance with the connecting with the in Tokyo Olympic. For example, the artist from the overseas, when they play in Tokyo for Tokyo Olympic, we can share the artist. Korea and Japan and China and Taiwan is also this four countries is very close. We are the neighborhood countries. Yeah, I would like to say Taiwan is the country is the who is the the complaint is yeah, China and Taiwan is the same countries. Doesn't matter. I don't concern. I just want to say these four countries like the venue or concert hall. Yeah. Overview is yeah. I told you already. This year the YouTube channel is very important to the artist, and not only musician but also the other young artist. Before the pandemic, the artists they just recording their live show, or they didn't recording their live show. They don't have the live the video for their promotion material. But from this year, almost artists they took the live show, and then finally they have is a really good quality the live video show. And also that YouTube is a very global the platform and channel. The Korean artists, when they uploading their show, they using the Korean character and also the English version. Yeah, you can find very easy by YouTube. This is the dramatical change yeah, is because the many times when I have a lecture or when I have a presentation for the artist, like a orientation, artists they don't understand this like live video. When they prepare the promotion material, they just have a short bio or profile or USB or digital sound source. That's it. Uh, as I know, 90%, 90% musician they don't have their live video the clip, and also they didn't uploading to YouTube. But finally, yeah, they have a really good quality video live recording, and also they have their own YouTube channel. Yeah, I think from next year, is the more artists and musicians they used to using their video and by YouTube. Yeah, this is very positive changing. Yeah, I think. Actually, if the pandemic didn't happen this year, our GloMMnet is association is for the music market or music expo is like a Circulart and Seoul Music Week. Yeah, we have nowadays we have 22 members, 20 countries, 22 members. If this pandemic didn't happen, we can have a two meeting, two main session. For example, the one is at the OMX, another one is Circulart or Seoul Music Week or Visa for Music, Morocco. But we didn't because of course Octavio and another board members they have a new idea for our cooperation and collaboration between the different country or between our members, but we didn't. For example, in Korea, the Minister of Culture they have a Asian Culture Center we call ACC. This is the National Culture Center for the collaboration between the Korea and Asian artists with the overseas artists. They can make their performance with a long term, not short term, at least 2 months or 3 months. The artists they can stay in ACC, but this is a weekend. 1 month ago, I participated in international collaboration project. Korea and Denmark is a theater. I participated as a jury and consultant. They operated by the online. And we can see the very big screen by on time. Korea and Denmark, of course, in the 7 or 8 hours different. Anyway, in Korean time is 7 p.m. We the processed, but I'm really sorry when I watching the theater. If they did they met as a real, and they if they can exchange the artist each other, the Korean artist, if they went to the Denmark, and also the Denmark artists, when they came to Korea, is the same. It's like this. From next year, through the GloMMnet, and also we have the board members, we will discuss about our cooperation and also collaboration for our artists. For example, the Korean artists who participated in Seoul Music Week, and also the Colombian artists or Latin American artists who participated in or who selected by Circulart. They can make their, if they want, they can make their collaboration work by long-term work, not short-term, like the jam session over 3 or 2 days. This is not good. We GloMMnet is our main goal is this, like not only just to exchange the information each other, but also our main goal is collaboration between our artists. Yeah. And finally, they can make a really new music. Yeah. Yeah, we will try again. Yeah, next year.
Gracias, Lee. Sin duda, GloMMnet ha tenido un importante impacto a nivel mundial en la intención de vincular o crear una red que pues ya está creada, es una red de mercados culturales alrededor del planeta, en los que hacen parte Seoul Music Week, Visa por Music, Circulart, Finpro, Mapas, Womex, y bueno, hay otras plataformas a nivel mundial que están vinculadas también no solo de América Latina, sino también de otros continentes que buscan promocionar a los artistas, generar intercambios, intercambiar información también para poder promocionar las plataformas de mercados en todos estos lugares del planeta y poder obviamente ampliar muchísimo más la voz de todos estos mercados y las misiones que tienen, y nos expone un reto muy importante. Hemos tenido millones de retos, pero hay uno que tal vez las plataformas no lo comentan tanto, y es el reto que han tenido también los artistas, ya que no todos, digamos, estaban preparados para tener un material promocional grabado, un material audiovisual grabado de alta calidad que pudiera funcionar para poder, digamos, darle contenido tanto a sus fans, a sus seguidores, como a plataformas de festivales y de mercados a los que han sido invitados. Y pues, según lo que nos cuenta Lee, no ha sido distinto tampoco en Corea. Y por supuesto esto ha tenido que verse de alguna manera resuelto o apoyado por las entidades locales gubernamentales que puedan soportar y apoyar a los artistas a desarrollar este tipo de material. Entonces, pues Lee, muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos. Sabemos que es difícil en términos de conexiones y de tiempos, pero es muy importante poder incluir esta visión desde Asia. Y para continuar, queremos darle la bienvenida a Alexandra Archetti de Oslo World. Ella es directora de este festival desde el 2006, es cofundadora del Festival Internacional Beirut and Beyond, que se realiza en el Líbano, y es organizadora de un festival llamado Our Neighborhood, que se celebra en centros psiquiátricos de Noruega. Y entre el 2011 y el 2018 fue presidenta del European Forum of Worldwide Music Festivals, otra de nuestras redes de las que conversamos hoy, para que ustedes también conozcan las acciones que estas redes están llevando y cómo están posibilitando también el reencuentro del sector. Y lo más importante, tal vez como una iniciativa creada este año, quien queremos obviamente que Alexandra nos cuente, es Maps the World, una plataforma creada por Oslo World que reúne la información de más de 100 festivales del mundo. Sin embargo, pues le damos la bienvenida a Alexandra para que nos cuente un poco sobre esta plataforma, sobre la edición digital que sabemos que logró hacer el festival este año, cómo fue, qué retos vieron en esta realización, y bueno, un poco las acciones también de las redes como el festival, el foro de festivales, y desde el resto de plataformas que diriges, que pues tienes un trabajo muy importante y muy amplio en tu sector allá en Noruega. Así que bienvenida, Alexandra, y gracias por estar con nosotros.
Ay. Hola todos, muchas gracias Carolina. Sí, bueno, soy Alexandra y estoy en Noruega. No sé si se dan cuenta, pero aquí son las 4 de la tarde y ya es oscura, tenemos oscuridad profunda. Así que estamos entrando en el invierno con poca luz. Y ha sido un año muy especial para todos porque, bueno, creo que nadie estaba preparado a cuánto iba a durar esta pandemia. Nosotros tenemos el festival siempre en noviembre, en el último fin de semana de octubre, y este año estábamos preparando el festival número 27, porque el Oslo World empezó en el 94, y la temática nuestra iba a ser rebeldía, rebeldes para este año. Y cuando estamos trabajando con toda la temática, nos fuimos a Beirut porque organizamos un festival en Beirut en febrero, y por algún milagro logramos hacer el festival en Beirut, en Líbano, a principios de año, y volvimos a Noruega y nos tocó esta pandemia. El Oslo World, para los que no nos conocen, tenemos el Festival de Beirut, que es un festival en diferentes localidades en toda la ciudad, que organizamos en diciembre cada año en realidad. Después tenemos 16 festivales de niños que también organizamos en todo el país de Noruega. Tenemos los festivales de los centros de refugiados, bueno, que es un proyecto más social para la inclusión y para trabajar hacia la diversidad y contra el racismo, que hay mucho de eso aquí. Y también, bueno, obviamente el Oslo World, que es como nuestro proyecto principal. Bueno, volvimos de Beirut y a principios de marzo, el 12 de marzo, todo cerró en Noruega. Y me acuerdo muy bien que llamé a un colega de otro festival aquí y le pregunté qué hacemos con el lanzamiento de los artistas internacionales, que nuestro programa ya estaba terminado, que lo íbamos a lanzar a mitades de marzo. Y él me dice, mira, creo que nosotros vamos a esperar un par de semanas. Y bueno, esas 2 semanas pasaron 2 semanas más, pasó un mes. Entonces, al mismo tiempo que estamos viendo esto de la pandemia llegando a Europa de una manera tan increíblemente fuerte, especialmente al sur de Europa, empezamos a hablar en la oficina de que, bueno, no vamos a poder viajar a los festivales donde siempre viajamos en la primavera, viendo bandas en vivo, y qué podemos hacer. Entonces empezamos a hablar con algunos colegas, a ver qué planes tenían, y nadie sabía si iban a cancelar o si iban a esperar. Bueno, así que hasta me acuerdo que los chicos de Primavera Sounds en Barcelona, o también del Sonar, me decían que no iban a cancelar todavía, esto era ya en marzo, porque no sabían qué iba a pasar. Entonces nos decidimos de ver algo juntos, porque para nosotros lo más importante, o una de las cosas que son muy importantes en el oficio que tenemos nosotros, es viajar y ver bandas en vivo y encontrarnos con artistas, con colegas. Y claro, eso era ya imposible en marzo. Entonces, primero preguntamos a una veintena de festivales alrededor del mundo, colegas y demás, amigos, a ver si les gustaría hacer listas de música, compartir directamente música, para, bueno, para aliviar un poco esa sensación de encerramiento que teníamos todos. Estábamos todos en nuestras casas, con nuestras familias, con los colegios cerrados, y sin poder en realidad movernos. Por lo menos era así en Noruega y muchos países. Y nos decidimos bueno, el interés era ya brutal, así que el 31 de marzo lanzamos la página web de Map the World. Voy a ver si lo puedo abrir porque es más fácil hablar de eso cuando lo vean. Y la idea en realidad es bastante fácil. Es un sitio web, o sea, la idea era simple, era contactar a los diferentes festivales y a preguntarles de hacer listas de música, para después poder ver qué se escucha en diferentes partes del mundo. Lanzamos 50 festivales la primera lanzamiento el 31 de marzo, y ahora cuando entramos aquí en el overview de los festivales tenemos 87 festivales de Europa que están con nosotros, tenemos 18 en África, 19 en la América Latina, 7 en Asia, de Medio Oriente, Oceania, bueno, y demás. Entonces la idea es que uno puede entrar en la página, podés, a ver si encontramos, por ejemplo, al Circular, por ejemplo. Entonces entras aquí, está Rock al Parque, por ejemplo, ¿no? Entonces está Rock al Parque y pones, y se abre el link y viene la música automáticamente. Y así, les invito a explorarlo porque la verdad que hay muchísima música en este mundo increíblemente bueno. Y bueno, a través de este mapa uno puede también descubrir bandas y festivales que uno no sabía que existía. Uno de mis favoritos es este que está en la India, por ejemplo, que es un festival de música, bueno, de música electrónica en la India y demás. Entonces, para nosotros eso fue una manera de conectarnos con nuestra industria. Nos hizo comunicar con muchísima gente, con muchísimos festivales, o sea que el gesto fue preguntar a los directores artísticos de hacer listas de música y después nosotros lo publicamos ahí en nuestra página. El diario inglés The Guardian en abril nos dijeron que era la mejor radio del COVID globalmente, que no lo habíamos esperado, que nunca habíamos hacer una radio. Y también nos da la idea esta de que formamos todos parte de la misma comunidad, formamos todos parte del mismo mundo de música que uno se necesita al otro. Entonces era una manera de compartir. Entonces, claro, el 2020 para nosotros cambió de ser el festival y el año donde íbamos a hablar de la rebeldía, de los artistas rebeldes, y pasó a ser la temática alrededor de la solidaridad. Era como inevitable. Entonces, todo este año hemos trabajado alrededor de la solidaridad local en Noruega, global, con este mapa que es uno de los proyectos que hemos lanzado. Y yo creo que también otro proyecto que ha sido muy importante para nosotros estos últimos meses ha sido nuestra fundación de solidaridad con Beirut, que después de la explosión en el puerto el 4 de agosto, lanzamos una campaña de crowdfunding para músicos viviendo en Beirut. Y lo hemos hecho en colaboración con Théâtre de la Ville en París y con SACEM, que es en París también, que es la Organización de Derecho de Autor, y otros colaboradores en Beirut, estudios y demás, para que la creación, para que los músicos crean música que se grabe y que se publique. y que sea un testimonio del año que ha pasado. Eso es un proyecto que hemos dado mucho amor ahora en Líbano y se va a lanzar, se empieza ese trabajo en enero, ya cuando todo se elige y demás. Y claro, el Festival de Oslo, hicimos 5 ediciones con 5 diferentes programas. Tuvimos que cancelar todos los festivales de niños, pero logramos armar el Festival de Niños en Oslo de una manera muy alternativa, que salió bastante bien. Y el Festival de Oslo, que es el festival de música en general en 20 localidades de la capital noruega, fue hace un mes. Y fue, fue el mes donde volvió el COVID a florecer en Noruega, porque está llegando el invierno, está llegando la gripe, y los casos empezaron a volver. Entonces era un momento complicado para nosotros de ver si podíamos hacer el festival o no. Estamos en un país donde han cerrado prácticamente las fronteras. Tenés que pasar 10 días en cuarentena, un poco como con todo el de Australia, que tenés que estar en el hotel de cuarentena, es muy caro, y bueno, así que prácticamente entrar al país es imposible. Entonces nosotros para el Festival de Oslo nos decidimos de hacer, dentro de todas las limitaciones que tenemos de capacidades y demás, el festival totalmente local, con todos los músicos basados aquí en Noruega, y todas las localidades que en general usamos. O sea que terminamos de hacer un festival de una semana en 13 localidades en Oslo, con 220 músicos locales, técnicos, gente en los bares. Bueno, fue como una aventura muy grande porque toda la parte de seguridad hacia la salud y demás es muy estricto, así que bueno, fue un trabajo bastante complicado, todo tiene que cerrar a las 10 de la noche, bueno, pero logramos hacer una edición inolvidable de Oslo World. Además fue como un momento de un poco de gloria, porque como no pasa nada, de pronto teníamos esto como un festival muy grande que lo logramos hacer, y el lunes después del festival todo cerraron, digamos, prácticamente el país, así que fue como un pequeño milagro. Y para terminar, porque también hay otra gente que va a hablar, lo que quiero también decir es que formamos parte, como también dijo Patrick, de una parte del mundo muy, muy privilegiado. A pesar de todo, nosotros tenemos muy pocos casos del COVID, pero también somos pocas personas en Noruega, o sea que comparativamente con nuestra población, las infecciones son bastante altas. Igualmente también tenemos muchos arreglos para artistas y para apoyo a los festivales y apoyo a los centros culturales, los teatros, cines y demás. O sea que aunque todo cierra ahora, el gobierno está constantemente poniendo plata de los fondos de petróleo a ver cómo pueden tratar de no solamente salvar el mundo de la cultura, sino toda la economía noruega, que como en todo el mundo, digamos, está muy marcado de lo que está pasando. Así que de alguna manera tenemos suerte nosotros de tener ese apoyo del Estado, del gobierno, que nos ha permitido seguir adelante con nuestros proyectos, porque creo que todos los que no tienen esa posibilidad, ha sido muy, muy imposible ni siquiera pensar en tener actividades. Así que nosotros que lo podemos hacer, era también una obligación. Y durante los Oslo World lo que fue muy, muy lindo es que también exploramos una manera nueva de encontrarnos virtualmente a través de ¿cómo se llama en español? Gaming, unos chicos de gaming que han creado toda una plataforma nueva para encontrarnos como en un juego de 3D. Entonces nuestros delegados entraron a armar hicimos todo nuestro programa de seminarios y de delegados dentro de ese programa 3D, con 500 delegados de 55 países, y era gratuito participar, Y bueno, ha sido una experiencia bastante interesante de formar parte de un mundo virtual bastante espectacular y poder encontrarte con colegas, charlar bastante cerca, con caras un poco de avatares y demás, y olvidarte un poco de todo este mundo del Zoom donde uno se mira su cara, cómo está la casa de tal persona, o no sé, fue como otra manera de encontrarnos. Y dentro de este sistema también trabajamos en armar un manifiesto utópico, a ver cómo vamos a salir al nuevo normal. Y quién sabe, porque ahora se está empezando a ver que algunos países van a empezar programas de vaccinación bastante amplias. Igualmente, hasta que el mundo esté como un poco terminado con la pandemia, yo creo que vamos a ver un nuevo normal muy diferente al que tuvimos el año pasado. Entonces, creo que lo que es muy importante en nuestra industria y nuestra comunidad es compartir, es siempre encontrarnos, aunque sea en estas redes y en estas maneras virtuales, y también ver cómo uno puede servir un poco al otro. Y yo creo que nosotros por ahí, el proyecto de Map the World, el proyecto del manifiesto utópico, que también hemos trabajado muy profundamente, esas dos cosas son desafíos que la verdad estamos como muy sorprendidos y contentos de que lo hemos logrado armar, y creo que también hay muchas posibilidades en el futuro dentro de esas plataformas. Y eso también nos va a acercar más. Entonces, lo bueno del COVID es que podemos vernos, podemos participar en charlas, digamos, transatlánticas, y bueno, al mismo tiempo no veo la hora de poder sentarme en un avión y irme a Medellín. Así que bueno, con eso quiero cerrar, pero muchísimas gracias por la oportunidad y bueno, ahí estamos en contacto.
Alexandra, muchas gracias a ti, y pues nada, creo que la solidaridad es uno de los valores que de alguna manera a nivel mundial lo teníamos muy olvidado, muy por debajo de nuestros intereses, y un poco todo lo que pasó en este año pues tiene que ver con eso, ¿no? Con volvernos más solidarios alrededor de todo lo que pasa con nuestra humanidad, con nosotros mismos, con la persona del lado, con los otros países y con la misma industria. Y lo que ustedes han venido haciendo desde todas las plataformas, pues realmente está llevando ese discurso como bandera, y me parece absolutamente admirable y muy bonito. Así que muchas gracias a ustedes. Además, fueron de los primeros en generar una acción tan importante como Maps of the World, que eso de alguna manera para muchos le puso en la cabeza, wow, sí podemos hacer cosas, podemos mantenernos unidos y podemos pues salir adelante como sector, y de alguna manera empezar a estar más cerca. Así que pues felicidades y que continúen ese trabajo tan increíble. Por aquí, cuando acabemos, les tenemos un par de preguntas, así que ya ahorita regresamos con ustedes. Y para continuar, quiero presentarles a Aungus Finnan. Aungus es el director ejecutivo de Folk Alliance International. Folk Alliance fue fundado en 1989 para conectar líderes de la música folclórica con el objeto de sostener la comunidad y el género. Es una voz líder para la música folclórica en Estados Unidos, y Aungus hace parte también de la Organización Nacional de las Artes en Kansas, de Alliance of Performing Arts Conference y Performing Arts Alliance. Este año vamos a realizar también una alianza con Aungus. Aungus ha tenido la oportunidad de estar también en Colombia, generando este intercambio que queremos abrir cada vez más con Norteamérica, y es para nosotros pues un gusto poder contar con él en este seminario. Bienvenido, Aungus, y pues para continuar la conversación quisiéramos también que nos compartas un poco sobre cómo desde la organización, desde Folk Alliance, que es tan grande en Estados Unidos, se generaron acciones en la situación de la pandemia, y qué están haciendo ahora, qué va a pasar un poco con el evento y con las redes en las que ustedes participan. Así que te doy la palabra y bienvenido.
Hola, thank you, Carolina, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here, and on behalf of the staff and board of directors of Folk Alliance International, I'd like to say hello to everyone and thank all of my fellow guest speakers today for the work that they're doing, and surely the work that everyone who's watching today are doing in their own communities and with their own organizations. Folk Alliance, at Folk Alliance, we start most of our events with an Indigenous land acknowledgement. So just as Glenn did from Sounds Australia, I would like to acknowledge that I am sharing this video with you today from Kansas City, Missouri, and that is on the traditional Indigenous lands of the Kansa, Osage, and Kickapoo nations. And we honor the fact that many of our organizations operate on ancestral Indigenous territory. I also want to share that my pronouns are he, him, and we do that in our introductions as a way of supporting and normalizing public representation of gender diversity. And for anyone who is blind or has vision impairment, I'll just describe myself for you if you're listening to this session. I am a white male wearing glasses with short hair and a beard. I'm wearing a floral shirt. I'm in a home office with a guitar, a painting, and a window in the background. So Folk Alliance does many things beyond its annual conference. We also present the International Folk Music Awards. We present the Kansas City Folk Festival. We have a concert series. We have recently partnered with Jeunesse Musicale Internationale to develop their ethno gathering here in the US for the first time in North America. We host a global summit series and Folk Exchange, which we just mounted in Australia last March. And we also host a Grammy Week celebration for all of the nominees for Grammys in the roots categories, inclusive of blues, bluegrass, folk, American roots, and regional roots. We have 5 regional versions of Folk Alliance. So while we are an international organization, we also have 5 regional organizations that represent smaller portions of North America, and they each have their own board of directors and their own events. And we recently had established a Nordic Folk Alliance that is hosting a conference in Gothenburg, Sweden. So there are lots of connections and a lot of overlap with many of the organizations represented here in terms of artists and industry. And ultimately, we're excited to see growing relationships between all of our organizations, and even during this COVID-19 experience, seeing partnerships build and strengthen, and opportunities like this for us to share information. The pandemic obviously has been devastating for everyone in terms of not just the music community or the cultural sector, but all of society globally. It certainly had a different impact in different places. Here in the US, there are 14 million cases, and there have been 274,000 deaths related to COVID-19. So it's dramatically different than in many countries. And the response and the situation throughout the US has been different city to city, state to state, in terms of ordinances that local authorities might announce, or that the state might announce. So the thing that was consistent was that there was an immediate shutdown of all live events, and as a result, all music industry events, all the venues were closed, all the festivals were canceled. There has been some limited reopening, some small concerts happening with social distancing, some outdoor events complying with the group regulations in terms of how many people can gather. Some festivals presented virtual editions. There have certainly been concerts presented with no audience, but live streamed, and it's been interesting to see the resilience of the sector, but it has been very challenging. For Folk Alliance International, our entire staff have been working from home since March 14th, and we will likely be working from home until next March. So it will be about a year that our office will have been closed. Unfortunately, we had to lay off 4 staff members. We had to cancel some of our programs. And ultimately in April, we announced that we were canceling our February in-person conference. The conference usually draws over 3,000 delegates from over 40 countries. And in April, although people were still hopeful that festivals might be able to happen, and it seemed crazy to be canceling something in February, we felt that it was too great a risk to assume that people would be able to gather, that we could bring 3,000 people into a hotel space, and that there would be enough safety measures in place or a vaccine for people to travel globally. So that call was made very early, and we have instead designed a virtual program, and I'll speak to that in a little bit, and finish off with some links that I'll share in the chat so that people can register for that conference if they like. But I think that one of the first things that hit us as an organization was the reality that with our event canceled, which brings in 65% of our annual revenue, we had to propose a budget, the first budget with a loss in over 2 decades. And like many organizations struggling to do emergency fundraising and make up for those losses, it's caused us to really think about the business model and how we work and how we build up a reserve to protect for such situations in the future. And I think the same could be said for all artists and all industry. What happens when the primary income disappears, and how do we become more nimble and diversify our revenue so that we're not reliant on one event or one funder? So I think it's been, despite the challenge, it has been a healthy internal process for us as a staff and board to have to reimagine the business model for the organization, and to look at increasing our donor base and building the support for the cultural and charitable work that we do. I think it's also, it's brought up a lot of more esoteric questions for organizations and for artists and the community at large. Who are we as an organization if we can't do what we normally do? And if we are an organization that serves the needs of the community in terms of our charitable work, what if the needs have changed, and how do we meet those needs? So we've had to do a lot of pivoting, and I think for the community, it also, as artists, who am I if I can't perform, and if I'm not there in front of an audience, and what does that mean artistically, and how does collaboration and creativity work in this new situation? For some, it's meant reflecting on their career, or bringing in different creative, finding different creative outlets, and for others, it's been very challenging. So we've been trying to think as an organization about how we support not only the economics of our industry and community, but also the health and sort of community vision of who we are and what we do. One of the first things that in April we realized we had to do was to look at our business model and the things that we're going to have to change. We knew that artists didn't have income, but it wasn't just the artists. The agents and managers who work with the artists, whose income comes from the artists, were also hurting. So we suspended all fees for our membership renewals, and starting in April, we extended all of the memberships up now till the end of February at no extra cost, realizing it was one more expense that people wouldn't be able to necessarily afford. We ultimately realized that we didn't have the capacity to be everything to everyone, but what we could do is focus on being a hub and using our website as an information hub. So we would gather up resources and pool them in different ways. So the first thing we did was provide some resources related to COVID-19. I'll just share a link there in the chat. And this was really to give some comprehensive information as people were looking for answers, especially around events and safe reopening of venues. We also saw that while there was a need to be finding ways to present online, that artists were already doing it and that there were many platforms. So rather than trying to invent our own system, that we would simply create a live stream calendar. So that live stream calendar is listed on the resource page, and it's a place where any artist anywhere can post their concerts, and if they're collecting money or charging money for people to see it, that they could generate revenue there. Given the murder of George Floyd and many of the issues related to the Black Lives Matter movement and the global impact that had, the issues of cultural equity that we've been working on over the past few years certainly came to a head in terms of how deeply we need to address those issues within our organization and within our field and community. So cultural equity resources also became an important touch point for us, and in terms of sharing that with the community, and it's also linked on the resource page. Online programming, there were so many questions and things that were changing that that webinars on a almost weekly basis became a necessary norm in terms of answering questions for the community, but also creating a space where people could come and think and talk and sort of work through ideas, but also share success stories in real time. So those online webinars and networking sessions where people could get together and just talk through their ideas and the situations that they were in became important, and that we not wait until a conference in February, but that we find real-time opportunities and solutions. And along with that, also a need to address mental health. So folk life balance is the hashtag we've been using for a couple of years, but that extended to also hosting meetings for people to talk not about the industry or their events, but to just talk to each other about how they are and how they're coping, and to recognize the impact that this has for all of us, even those who still have work and are continuing to work under new and stressful situations. There is also, for those who don't know about it, there are two folk music charts that I'll also put that in the chat. And we released new guidelines to help artists and their teams and publicists understand how to get new music to folk DJs digitally, and for DJs to better understand how to post to the charts. So we invite anyone who's not aware of the charts or hasn't been circulating music to those DJs digitally to look at those guidelines, and certainly DJs who are listening to this presentation who aren't part of those charts to consider posting their playlists there. Partnership and advocacy has been really important at this time, and certainly working with all of our partner organizations, staying in close contact has been important to understand at a country level, and in terms of export, what some of those opportunities are. We were thrilled to work with Sounds Australia, the East Coast Music Awards, East Coast Music Association, and Showcase Scotland and their venture with Global Music Match. One of the alliances that we're most closely aligned with here in the US is the Performing Arts Alliance. And this is a high-level national art service organization cohort that works specifically related to advocacy at a national level. So endorsing things like the CARES Act, which provided emergency funding nationally, and specifically funding for the National Endowment for the Arts, who in turn distributed through regional organizations, CARES Act funding to support organizations, including Folk Alliance, so that we can survive and thrive. Another initiative that we're endorsing through the Performing Arts Alliance is Save Our Stages, and you can follow that hashtag, Save Our Stages. This is about encouraging US Congress to provide support for venues at this time so that they are able to survive the closures and successfully open. Without the venues, our touring artists won't have places to go to generate work when it's safe to come back. And we've been, through that alliance, encouraging US Congress to expand and extend charitable giving incentives. So reasons for people to donate to charities. So tax deductions and proposing an increase in the limit so that it incentivizes people to give at this time. Coming up, we have a number of exciting programs. One thing that everyone is invited to participate in that's really just about connecting as community is I Heart Folk. So we look at folk as a very broad genre. The folk music of Colombia is different than the folk music of Korea or the folk music of Estonia or Canada. But in each place, it's the music of the people. And we have a campaign called I Heart Folk, where we're inviting people to share their stories, why they love folk music. Maybe it was a record, maybe it was a song that their parents sang, perhaps it was a festival, but to share those stories, to hold up a record, to show a picture from an event they were at, and just to connect globally around the importance of folk music in their lives. One of the things that we've done in the past is an artist in residence program. This year, curated by Grammy Award winning artist and NPR host Chris Thiele. We have an artist in their residence program where we're pairing artists from the US with artists outside of the US to co-create songs about the COVID-19 experience. So we're all experiencing isolation, the disconnection, the virtual space, and to just sort of reflect on that in the creation of new songs. We're also preparing to launch a village fund. So while there have been many emergency funds, we're starting to fundraise towards a village fund that will be available in the spring to provide grants to any folk artist anywhere in the world, but also industry. It's not only artists who are hurting. There are plenty of agents, managers, folks who work from home, have small businesses who are similarly struggling, and this fund will hopefully provide some support. We're also working on a safe reopening guide. We have a grant support and have hired Majestic Collaborations to work over the next year to build a guide that will help small venues and presenters use best practices in reopening safely. We are building and launching a cultural equity council to help Folk Alliance really look at within our organization and within the music industry at large, the issues related to the marginalization of many communities, and specifically communities of color, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and to think constructively and long-term about how we remove barriers and change the way that we do business to be more inclusive in all we do. And then finally, our conference, which was meant to be in person in February and will now be virtual, is called Folk Unlocked. And the idea here is that we are unlocking it by providing greater access this year, including a choose your own registration fee. So for those who can afford it, there's a $150 rate, there's a $75 rate, there's a $25 rate. And for anyone who can't afford it at this time, there's a $0 rate. And we invite people to come to the conference if it's their first time coming, to come and see what it is, and to invite friends in industry and artists to connect there and to explore all that the conference is. We're going to try to do as many of the things that we've done at the in-person event online, to have panels, workshops. There are exhibit booths where people can meet. There will be networking sessions. There's even going to be an elevator ride. So between sessions, anyone attending the virtual conference will all of a sudden be randomly put into a room with 5 people as you go up in the elevator until you get to the next workshop, just like at a conference where you would end up in random conversations. There are also showcases. So we're working with industry partners to have spotlights on folk artists from their respective regions or communities. Circulart will be one of those spotlight partners, and we thank them and all of the others who are helping to coordinate that. But for anyone listening in, there are also unlocked showcases. So these are for any artist or presenter who wants to bring artists and do an unlocked or private showcase. You're welcome to do that. You have to be registered for the conference, but that provides minimally an hour-long window that anyone can come, and for a $10 fee, a listing fee that will put it onto the official calendar. So a lot has happened. It's been an exhausting process, as I know everyone is experiencing, but there are a lot of silver linings in this, and I think the innovation and the changes that everyone has had to sort of look at and adapt to are going to bring us things that will last 2, 3, 5 years from now, including new friendships, new partnerships, and new ways of doing business.
Aungus, muchas gracias. Un aplauso para ustedes. Realmente son una organización muy, muy articulada y que está haciendo un trabajo inmenso por el sector, y que bueno, todo lo que nos cuentas acá es importantísimo para que nuestra comunidad también se entere, para que todas estas experiencias exitosas que ustedes han desarrollado, pues podamos de alguna manera todos también aplicar en nuestros espacios. Y pues maravilloso, Aungus nos comparte enlaces de todo lo que han hecho, Folk Research, que creo que es una página buenísima para que ustedes encuentren todas las acciones que ellos han venido realizando, desde los webinars, desde respuestas frente al COVID, ayudas, etcétera. Así que pues se pueden enterar ahí. Y como lo contabas, este año con Circular habrá una alianza en febrero. Creo que además hay que contar aquí que ustedes fueron de los pocos mercados que este año lograron hacer edición presencial, que estuvieron en febrero con el mercado, que tuvimos la oportunidad de conocer y experimentar, porque pues venimos con la intención también desde RedLab de generar otra red para poder conectar Norteamérica y Sudamérica de una manera más libre. Y pues este ejercicio de los ascensores me encanta porque me recuerda del aspecto que tiene Folk Alliance durante el evento, y es que como se realiza en un hotel y en los pisos del hotel, más de 12 pisos del hotel en que realicen el evento, hay showcases en todos los pisos, hay conferencias, hay actividades, pues pasas gran tiempo del que estás en el mercado en el ascensor, ¿sí? Porque en el ascensor tienes que ir al piso donde vayas a estar en la programación. Y como lo decía Aungus, se genera una conversación, tienes la oportunidad de hacer networking con todos. Por supuesto que extrañamos ese espacio. Sin embargo, pues vemos todas las oportunidades y potencialidades que nos ha generado también este mundo digital, y que agradecemos a todos los que nos están acompañando y a ustedes por todas las acciones que generan, que al final benefician a los artistas. A mí me gustaría volver a Brahim. No sé si Brahim sigue por acá. Está
Yes,
por aquí estás. Hola, Brahim.
I'm here.
Bueno, para cerrar me gustaría hacerle una pregunta a cada uno de ustedes, antes de ir también a las preguntas del público, y es cómo se plantean el 2021, Brahim. ¿Cuáles son las perspectivas que están planteando desde Afirma, desde Visa for Music, desde TAR, para la recuperación del sector?
Well, I think the cultural scene in Morocco and everywhere has been strongly impacted by this health crisis, but many cultural events and activity has been cancelled or put on hiatus following the pandemic. The artistic cultural sector have suffered from a lack of opportunities. For the cultural sector to overcome this crisis, it must be a priority, I hope, in the public authorities in the future. Of course, we need to revitalize the sector, renew the cultural scene, and of course, probably create a new dynamic around the creative and cultural industry. With the income generating activities for artists and cultural operators, of course. I think it must be remembered that many of the great global crises have been overcome in large parts by culture, and that it has also often helped restore social cohesion. In short, probably we must stop considering culture as a secondary domain and place it in the center so that it occupy public and meeting space. So, but I'm optimist for this 2021. I think because people are really want to be to back to public spaces to meet uh, artists to see the live performance, because it's fine to have digital opportunities, but I think we need all of us to meet again, to back to our live performance, because we cannot. There is a big difference between a live concert and digital concert, and our sector is linked to social life. So we need to go out from our lockdown home to meet friends, to travel, to see wonderful musician performance, etc. So probably I think I'm optimist, and I hope also that we that all of us can invite artists from all over the world, wonderful artists from all over the world. It's of course easy to invite only the artists from the same area because of the borders are closed. But I hope that we will back stronger after this shit period.
Gracias, Brahim. Sí, sin duda, el optimismo es algo que no podemos perder. Y bueno, esta pregunta va relacionada también con una pregunta que nos hace María del Rosario, una de nuestras participantes. Ella nos pregunta, quisiera saber cuándo ven la posibilidad de que reactiven los festivales en vivo y poder reanudar las actividades internacionales. Ella es artista, viaja a Europa todos los veranos y no sabe si en el 2021 podrá haber la posibilidad de viajar. No sé, Patrick, si tú puedas ayudarnos en esta respuesta a María del Rosario, teniendo en cuenta tu labor como director en el Worldwide Music Festivals Forum, si tengas alguna claridad sobre el tema. Sabemos que muchos seguimos sobre la incertidumbre, pero bueno, sería bueno conocer tu opinión.
Well, I think all will depend from country to country, but I see 2021 as a transition period. I don't think that in 2021 the festival business will bloom again and be back to normal. For instance, in Belgium, as in quite a lot of other European countries, the vaccination strategy starts with some groups of people, and most of the time, young people, in many cases, festival audiences, will be last of the line. So it will be hard in some cases to set up large-scale festivals. 2022 would be a better guess, I think. In the meantime, I think we had a lot of time to reflect, to exchange, to come up with new ideas, and maybe also to balance large-scale festivals who become larger and larger every year, because that's what we are all trying to achieve, and to look at other possibilities. Here at my festival, we had one concert in a very special setting with a very special approach that we could present 40 times, which means that a wonderful, beautiful concert could play 40 times for 40 different audiences, which is much more sustainable for the organizer and for the artists. So I think we could use the reflection period we had, the possibilities that 2021 will open up, and try to balance things more and keep having these exchanges, because as some people also said, that every meeting, every exchange brings me new ideas, new possibilities, and new ways of doing things. So sometimes it's good to stand still, reflect, and then do beautiful things again.
Gracias, Patrick. Sin duda el 2021 sí será un año de transición y tendremos que esperar qué va pasando, pero pues creo que esta situación nos enseñó a responder sobre la marcha, a hacer planes a corto plazo, a mediano plazo, a largo plazo, a escribir ideas, unas se realizarán, otras no, pero bueno, hemos aprendido y ahí continuamos. Y me gustaría también hacerle una pregunta a Alexandra y tal vez a Patrick también, desde la experiencia que tuvieron este año de producir su evento, sus festivales en este contexto. ¿Cuál fue el mayor reto en términos de producción y convocatoria de público durante este año? ¿Y cuál creen que va a ser el mayor reto para los próximos años? Alexandra, si quieres, te doy la palabra a ti y luego a Patrick.
¿Reto qué es? ¿El desafío?
Sí, exacto.
Bueno, para nosotros creo que lo más complicado fue que las reglas de los políticos y del Ministerio de Salud cambiaba cada semana. O sea que de poder hacer eventos dentro del margen de la limitación de público fue bastante difícil, porque en Noruega podíamos tener máximo 200 personas, no importa la capacidad de la sala. O sea que teníamos salas de 1.400 personas con 200 personas y teníamos salas bueno, y para abajo, digamos, ¿no? O sea que eso de manejarse dentro de las reglas y tratar de armar eventos que dan mucho calor y mucha alegría al mismo tiempo que todo el mundo está sentado y todo el mundo está, digamos, eso fue un poco para nosotros por ahí lo más, la incertidumbre fue por ahí lo más difícil este año, porque no sabíamos hasta el lunes antes del festival si podíamos hacer el festival por cuestiones de las reglas del Ministerio de Salud, que todos los días cambiaban un poco las reglas. Yo creo que para el año que viene, como dice Patrick, no veo que la movilidad se va a normalizar. Tal vez vamos a ver una posibilidad de mover artistas dentro de un continente, no sé, pero eso puede ser una posibilidad dentro de Europa, por ejemplo. Pero creo que todavía todo el año que viene va a ser digamos, uno tiene que tener esa capacidad de adaptación, de ver posibilidades donde por ahí uno no los veía antes, y de estar dispuesto a otros horizontes de planificación. Es que uno tiene que planificar de manera más, bueno, más a corto plazo, porque creo que este año que ha pasado nos ha enseñado que todos los planes que tuvimos se cambiaron 80.000 veces y que al fin ha salido bastante bien. Mientras tengo la palabra, también me gustaría agradecer a Aungus, porque me parece que el trabajo que han hecho ustedes en Folk Alliance es increíble, y todo ese enfoque bueno, en la parte indígena y demás, me parece muy interesante, así que te voy a escribir, Angus. pero sí, no, eso creo que ha sido lo más complicado para nosotros este año.
Gracias, Alexandra. Patrick, ¿qué pasa contigo? ¿Qué pasó con ustedes? El mayor reto este año y el próximo.
Well, I can certainly agree with what Alexandra said. No? We have started our festival in 1st of July, and we went on until the 13th of October. So I think we have seen all kinds of regulations, putting up new signs every week, informing the audience and our collaborators and the artists again and again about what has changed again this week. So that's this was quite hard, because as organizer we were almost forced to be an internal police force. Just only saying what people could not do, and this is not our job. This is not what we are in this business for. Another challenge for us was to find a financial balance in having more limited audiences, having more staff to handle all things, putting a lot of money in all the measures. We bought so much disinfectants and so on, extra tablets to have the registration. So this financial balance which for us went well because our government supported as well. But will be very difficult. Some festivals really depend on audience numbers. It's what makes some festivals. I think those were the most difficult things. On the other side, we have seen that from the artist side, it all went wonderful. If we asked them to do 2 concerts a day, because our capacity was limited, of course. On the audience side, people, even in the most difficult circumstances, came to a concert, because you have to imagine that you have to plan going there, disinfect your hands, put on the mask, register yourself, sit down at a table, do not stand up, do not dance, do not move. So I think from the artist side and from the audience side, a lot is possible if we have good, predictable criteria and protocols, and if we have the support to make it happen.
Gracias, Patrick. Mira, Alexandra.
Y había también una situación especial este año que teníamos que tener todos los datos de cada público, de cada persona que entraba en las salas, número de teléfono, dirección, nombres. Viste que tenemos bastantes reglas estrictas por, ¿cómo se llama? Cuidado de la privacidad de cada uno en Noruega, ¿no? Pero este año la verdad es que sabíamos dónde viven, cuándo llegaron, cuándo se fueron, con quién estaban sentados, para poder realmente volver a encontrar, a la gente que eventualmente estaba infectada del COVID. Entonces, eso también ha sido bastante delicado, pedir todos estos datos a nuestro público, que lo quedamos durante 2 semanas por si había alguna infectado durante los conciertos nuestros. Por suerte no pasó, pero abríamos todos los conciertos diciendo, we know where you live, we know who you are.
Sí, qué fuerte eso, es bastante contradictorio y además en términos de costos, como lo decía Patrick, pues me imagino que toda esa producción con ese nivel de detalle, de protocolos y de restricciones, pues se puede hasta duplicar, lo que obviamente hace que sea aún más difícil para las organizaciones culturales pues mantener su sostenibilidad, ¿no? Ahora tenemos una pregunta del público que me gustaría pasársela a Aungus. Es una pregunta de María Cecilia y ella nos pregunta: ¿han realizado mapeos de afectación no solo de las pérdidas económicas para el sector musical, sino también a nivel de salud y en nivel humano? ¿Qué tanto ha afectado al sector y a las personas?
It's a great question. We have done some we've done some sort of impact for artists in the industry. We did a survey to understand what their needs were as it relates to developing the Village Fund. But we have not done a comprehensive assessment, partly because there are so many surveys happening that we've instead looked to create that hub again and just bring together all of the information that other people are doing. Excuse me. But one of the surveys that will go out with the Circuit Rider grant will do more of an assessment of the impact for all of the venues and festivals. And I think we were hesitant to do it early because so little was known at the time, and we wanted to wait until it was well into the situation where everyone could be looking back on the true impact of the year. So we do have plans to do a more substantial survey of the presenting side of the network, and then to follow up with artists as it relates to their financial needs.
Thank you, Aungus. Gracias a todos. Gracias, Patrick. Gracias, Alexandra, Brahim, Aungus. Queremos agradecerle también a Lee y a Glenn, que por estar en Australia y en Corea, pues no, se desconectaron con nosotros. Patrick ya tiene también otra reunión. Sabemos que este es un tiempo muy valioso, que nuestras agendas en lo digital se han vuelto mucho más ocupadas y tenemos Zoom tras Zoom, pero estamos aquí. Lo importante es que nos podemos ver, podemos seguir compartiendo. Muchísimas gracias por contarnos todo lo que hacen, muchísimas gracias por todo lo que hacen desde sus escenarios, desde sus lugares en el planeta, que sin duda nos hace sentir más cerquita, nos hace sentir que estamos involucrados todos como una comunidad, no solamente en lo local, sino también en lo mundial. Es paradójico porque a pesar de que lo presencial se ha tenido que enfocar en lo local, de alguna manera lo digital nos estamos volviendo más globales y esto nos tiene también más conectados. Así que les agradezco muchísimo por su tiempo. Recuerden continuar con nosotros a las 12 del día. Tenemos nuestro siguiente panel sobre Iberoamérica y estamos compartiéndoles el enlace para que se puedan conectar en el siguiente panel. Muchas gracias a ustedes, los que están con nosotros, y a nuestros panelistas. Feliz día, feliz tarde, feliz noche.
Gracias.
Un abrazo
Thank
digital.
you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.
Big hug.